All righty. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, sister. How are you?
Alhamdulillah. So I just wanted to make sure I could get in. I'm gonna go finish getting ready.
Okay.
So I'm still the only one here.
Just you and I so far.
I was looking for the disclaimer. I forgot to read it last week, and I looked at everything from you. Do you remember what the title of it was, the email?
I don't, but let me see if I can find this really quick. Should I email it to you?
Sure.
Okay. Surprised nobody's popped. There was somebody that popped on at like 8:25 my
Mhm.
time,
Oh,
like
okay.
an hour ago.
Okay, they probably had the time wrong.
Yes.
Of course. Kroger says your
Error.
last chance for your Valentine's Day essentials.
Yeah, well,
I am so glad I don't celebrate all these holidays. I save money, as well as my feelings don't get hurt.
oh yeah.
Oh, I meant to see how my headpiece looked. I always have to check.
Okay, it is on the way.
Oh, okay. I was getting ready to say, I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't see it. Just print it real quick. All right, so now I can come back. I'll be in place.
All right. Well, they got 2 minutes.
Before they late to class.
Exactly.
Oh, let me see how my headpiece look. These earrings or something, don't
Don't start me. Don't start me to dressing.
Oh, bear. Cahoot is with us.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I just got off a plane, so I was able to get here in time.
Well, we thank you for, your sacrifice and your time. We appreciate it.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah.
How's the family?
Oh man, the family is doing wonderful.
Alhamdulillah.
So we can't complain.
So are you in the airport or did you manage to get to the house?
No, I managed to get to the house. I had to get all the way here.
Okay. All righty. So we normally start about 10:30. We give people a couple minutes to arrive. So 10:30 is our time and we start at 10:35. So we have two members, committee members on the line, Rashid and Edward. So there are going to be an introductions of them. So let me just do a quick introduction and introduce the three of you all. So Edward was one of the founders of this committee. And then Rashid invited me to participate a couple of years ago. He's in the bank, formerly a banker, Edward formerly investments. So, and both of them are businessmen at this time, trying to use their skills to do whatever they can do. Rashid says he's just a what do you say, a brother from the hood trying to do the community some good.
Brother from the hood trying to do the world some good. That's all I can say.
He's a poet too.
All right. So we're beginning to get people on the line. So we'll just give a couple minutes. Cut my phone.
Brother Hood, what city you tuning in from?
I'm tuning in from Dallas, but I'm a recent convert to Dallas. So like right now, I claim Atlanta by way of DC. So
okay. Down
So
the way.
Edward, are you in Dallas? Where are you?
I am in Dallas. I'm in Dallas, Texas.
Okay, so y'all neighbors.
We must be. I did not know because I thought Hood was Atlanta based, but fantastic. Good to have him.
what part of the city, Brother Edward?
Well, I live near downtown.
Okay.
Yeah. Where are you living? What part?
I'm in Richardson.
Okay. I know Richardson very well.
Okay, yeah. So
Richardson has to be a suburb. That's where Rabia is, isn't it?
She's a little
probably
bit
more Plymouth.
Yeah, she's a little north, I thought, of
Okay.
there. So does Amana have an office now in Richardson?
It's just me.
Okay, it's just you.
Wherever I am, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you know that Bank of Whittier is in Richardson as well.
Where?
Yeah, I went by and gave them a visit. They,
Is
you know,
that-
from time to time,
that's the
I'll get
7th? It should have the
customers.
it should have the load day, but are you on the 7th?
Okay. I'm
from
sorry.
time to time, I get no problem. From time to time, I get customers who are referred to by the team at Bank of Whittier. So,
Okay, yeah, I know those guys really well.
Yeah.
They just started a new CD offer recently. Yeah, a little over 4%, almost, I think 4.5%, depending on how much you
how long you keep it there?
Yeah, exactly. So they're trying to
Okay.
compete with treasuries with that rate.
Yeah. The UIF and University of Islamic Financial, they opened a new CD as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think to get 4%, you have to commit to longer than 1 year term.
Oh yeah, I would imagine so, because even I think what the 10-year treasury is just under 4%. And it's a long treasury that's over 4%. So yeah, I figured it's got to be, I would think you have to be there for 7 years to get that rate. I mean, just to beat the liquidity test of beating a treasury, I would think you'd have to be at least 5, probably more than 5 though.
All righty, so we want to begin It's 10:35. So I want to welcome everybody to the 5th week of Graceline Community Incorporated Strategies for Making Your Money Grow 091. And before we really get started, I just want to remind you this webinar is not investment advice. It is intended for information and entertainment purposes only. And so let's begin with the dua. Rashid, someone, our usual isn't here, and that's Talib. Rashid or Edward, you want to lead the dua?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين.
So again, thanks for attending our remedial 7-week personal finance course. I'm Amira Wazir, your host for today's class. And as always, I want to begin with a brief recap of past sessions. Week 1 was about intentions about money, and you were given homework. You were supposed to find all your financial documents and statements and etc. and review them, determine where you were spending your money, every dime of it. My son gave me a phrase. He said, you got to be obsessed with success. So that's what, so when I say every dime of it, you have to understand where your money is. You have to be obsessed with this. Just can't say, well, I'll do a little bit. And all of this was in preparation for developing a budget. Week 2, our topic was monetizing your attitude. And gave us a perspective on the need to managing our thinking in order to manage our money. So the book that suggested book was Think and Grow Rich, was our suggested readings. Week 3, Brother Omar presented the 50-30-20 budget, and Edward helped us examine our consciousness about money and our fantasies with a P. The budget was not posted yet. We're hoping it's on now. Is it up yet, the 50-30-20 budget?
It is, yes.
Good. So everybody will be able to go there. That information that was your homework, you can begin to plug that into the budget. I think it really helps if you've done a good job of just outlining everything and put it on paper, doing a tracking. I was still trying to get this tracking device created for you all, but it's much more challenging than I thought, trying to make it something everybody can use. So week 4 was the psychology of risk, and Edward did a good job of outlining the investment strategy for couples and taking them on into retirement. And so this week we are proud to present our very special guest is Hood Williams, and Hood is with Amana, and which is the parent company is Turner, and he has over 20 years of financial service experience working in a variety of fields, from financial systems implementation to Islamic compliant home finance. His education background includes an undergraduate degree in economics from Old Dominion University, an MBA with a finance concentration from Georgia Institute of Technology, and he is currently working on a certificate in Islamic finance from the International Center for Education in Islamic Finance, located in Kuala Lumpur. Did I pronounce that correct? In Malaysia. Mr. Williams is married with 6 children and splits his time between family, work, and the community. He is currently serving on the board of the Atlanta Master of Al-Islam and Muslim Aid USA relief organizations. So it is I'm not going to waste any time. I want to introduce Hood. And so we're looking forward to getting information about the world of investments. And so Hood, you're on. Assalamu alaikum and welcome.
Alhamdulillah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Thank you. I think they're not allowing me to share my screen.
And
And so let me just go ahead while we're getting the sharing right to introduce myself. That was a good bio. Now that I hear it, it's a little bit dated. I'm actually was able to transition off the board of Atlanta Masjid. I got a chance to be on the board for a decade. And then I get a little bit more of my time back. But alhamdulillah, I'm always kind of really excited about working in the community, really helping us become and do more and be more efficient and professional in all the things we're doing. So my name is Hood Williams. My passion is really working with the Muslim community. This community is, my parents were both converted or reverted to the faith around 1974 in Washington, D.C. And this community has been a source of inspiration, but also a source of care. And so having the opportunity to give back has been very important to me. And particularly, there was 2 instances that really kind of cemented in here how I would like to give. I think the first was when I was around 23. I graduated from Old Dominion and I lived in Northern Virginia. And there was a presentation on Islamic finance, and a imam or a sheikh came in, probably from somewhere overseas, and he gave a talk, and he basically said, insurance is haram, banking is haram, investment is haram, home finance is haram. And then after that, he, asked some questions, so on and so forth. And then he flew back to the country where he was from. And it just really kind of dawned on me. It's like, we cannot depend on anyone else to make, our community solid community development. We can't depend on anyone else. We have to do it for ourselves. And so that's one of the things that started me on this journey of Islamic finance. And secondly, is I was talking to an auntie of mine, and she asked me to help her with her retirement. And so we went over her retirement plans. She was getting Social Security. She paid off her home. And I said, well, auntie, where's your 401k? Where's your 403b? Where's your individual retirement account? She said, I never invested in that because I didn't think it was halal. So here's this Muslim woman who's been faithful to her faith for the last 40 to 50 years, going in retirement in a very delicate state. And it's because of her faith, and because we as a community haven't done enough to educate our community on ways where you can invest for the future, invest for your kids' education, but do so in a way that was aligned with our values. And so those are 2 of the quick stories that really kind of started me on this path. I've been working directly for Amana Mutual Funds for 2 years. I've been investing with them for the last 40 years. And, some of the founders and and even our vice president have been mentors of mine for the last, 2 decades. So inshallah, we're gonna go over this presentation. If there's any questions, feel free to kind of put them in the chat or just communicate through Zoom. So, Bismillah. So anytime when we're talking about investments, we have to make sure that we say that investments require risk, that risk can include the loss of capital. So when we first start, let's think about why people save. So people save for buying a home. You get the best rates when you're putting 20% down. And so most people have to save for that. And when you're saving, you want your savings to be working for you. And so you want to be investing part of your savings. We have to save and invest for Hajj. Hajj costs almost between $10,000 and $15,000 per person now. Children's education is a very kind of important reason for people saving, as long as retirement, as well as healthcare savings. And when you're thinking about investing, there's usually 3 high-level goals. The first one is capital growth. I want my money to grow. I want my money to work for me. Then you can move into a mode where you are thinking about income. So how is this capital that's grown can give me a recurring stream of income? And then you also get to a stage where it said, hey, look, I saved, I invested, but now I just want to preserve this, maybe so I can pass it on to the next generation. Like when we think about things like generational wealth. And so what I'm going to talk about today is I'm going to talk about mutual funds. So a mutual fund is an investment company that buys a portfolio of securities. So we all know the old adage, don't put all your eggs in one basket. So if you're going into the market, if you're going into the stock market and you're buying one stock, say you buy stock XYZ. Stock XYZ has a good year, you feel great. If they have a bad year, you feel terrible. And so what a mutual fund is, it's going to do a collection of companies so that it balances out the risk. So you have a kind of diverse portfolio. But also mutual funds can also have diversity, but they can have a certain objective. So I want to have a diverse companies that we think are going to grow. I want to have a diverse companies that we think they are going to pay a dividend. Or I really like healthcare. I think healthcare is a great industry to be in. I want to have a diverse company in the field of healthcare. So you can have these different types of mutual funds. So a mutual fund is usually selected by professional investment advisors who are basically looking at those industries, looking at the companies, really doing their due diligence. Usually when I talk to folks, I know a lot of folks who like to do individual investing. Rather than buying a mutual fund, they like to do it themselves, which is great. It's no problem. I really challenge people in terms of how much work are you doing? Are you reading the 10K? Are you kind of understanding the industry, or is it a company that you just prefer? And both of them are okay, right? It's your money. But when you're thinking about the money that you're putting aside for your future, you might want to focus on investment advisors who are really going to do the best for you in your future, because they're looking at this every day, like that's their job that they do. So moving on, so habits of successful investors. And I'm not going to drain the slide. I'm going to keep it very high level. The first one is invest for the long term. The earlier you start, the better, because we're allowing our money to work for us. For example, if we're thinking about a snowball effect, the higher you start the snowball up, the larger it's going to get as it rolls down the hill. And so we want to invest early and often and kind of make it a muscle. So we're investing, $100 a month, $500 a month, so on and so forth. And so getting the habit of investing, getting the habit of investing early. Albert Einstein, as is recorded, is saying that the most powerful force in the universe is compound investing. And so if you imagine, this is one of the creators of the atomic bomb. He said that compound investing is more powerful than that. And we're going to see some visuals about that a bit later on. And the last one is distinguish between good companies and good investment. And that in order to do this, you have to understand emotional biases. Like, so if my friend comes to me and says, Hood, I made a 50% return on this company. That's great. There's a natural desire in me to say, oh, I want to put my money in that company too, because he made 50%. But what's the likelihood that a company makes 50% one year and then makes 50% another year? I'm not saying it might not happen, but you have to make sure that you're not making that decision off the emotional bias. You have to make sure that the price that you're buying that security for is still a good investment vis-a-vis the price that your friend or your family member purchases the security for. So now we're going to talk about investing according to Islamic principles. And what does this mean? The first step is that you can come up with the best strategy. You can come up with the best framework to invest along with your values. But then you also need an outside party to audit that, to make sure that you're doing what you're saying you're doing, not just when you start, but throughout the process. And so Saturna Capital has secured Amani Advisors. It's a company out of Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Kuala Lumpur is one of the capitals of Islamic finance in the world. And so they do quarterly reviews of our portfolio and our processes. And then on an annual basis, they give us a certification that we are investing according with Islamic values. And so what are those values? So there's 3 screening criteria. So the first one is we look at the primary business of the company. If their primary business is banking, alcohol, exploitative media, gambling, pork, we're not going to invest in it, full stop, right? So if it's a company, it's an alcoholic company, we're not going to invest in it. Number 2, if it's something that's outside of those, then we're going to do a deep dive into their financial statements. We're going to look at their balance sheet to say, hey, how much do they have vis-a-vis the total value of the company? And it has to be less than 1/3. Number 2, what kind of assets do they have on their books? So accounts receivable has to be less than 45% of their total assets. And the last one is there going to be some impermissible revenues, right? If you look at a company like Southwest is a transportation company, there's no problem with that. But while they're transporting folks from, LA to Chicago, they also sell alcohol. And so we will do the due diligence to say, hey, how much alcohol revenue do they have vis-a-vis the total revenue they have as a company? And what our scholars and advisors have said, they set that limit of 5%. So it has to be under 5%. And so most of the companies we invest in is almost around 1 to 2%. And so we're not trying to get to that borderline, but that is the guideline that we have. Thirdly, when we're thinking about the Sharia, when we're thinking about Islamic values, there's not all about what you can't do. It's not about you can't drink, you can't gamble, so on and so forth. You also have to ask yourself, what should we be doing as a company? What should we be doing as an individual? I should be working in a way and operating my business in a way that's good for the environment. I should be operating my business in a way that makes sure that I'm sustainable for the next generations to come. I should be having good governance practice that manage how I treat all of my stakeholders, not just my shareholders, but my employees, my customers, the owners, so on and so forth. And so we have a proprietary ESG score, environmental sustainability and governance score, that we use to rate all the companies. And then we only invest in ones that pass a certain mark. And so this is like the positive kind of screening. So that makes up our screening process for stocks. So after we go through those screenings, we have to select companies that we think are going to outperform for the cycle. So not just not just doing good when things are going great, but also in recessionary time, we want to make sure these companies are going to kind of really still kind of produce and kind of do well. So now I'm going to move on and talk about some of our investment products. And then I'm going to come back and talk in detail about our mutual funds. So when we think about investing for college, the price of college is going up and up and up and up. So it's not just okay to save for college. So in this illustration, we have someone who is.
Keep listening. I don't want to interrupt anything.
Like that, and I can listen.
You want to
and this-
relax while you're doing it,
Please mute your phones. Sorry about
So in
that.
You want the speaker, are you okay?
So in this example, we have someone who's replacing their fancy cup of coffee with investing in their son's or their daughter's college education. So a fancy cup of coffee costs roughly $5 a day, $25 a week, $100 a month. So we're just going to round it out to $1,000 a year. And so if you invest that from the time the child is born, at 3, that'll be $3,000. It'll be worth $31.94. This is based off of 7% rate of return. But at the time the child is 18, you would have invested $18,000 and it will be worth $34,458. And this is based off of a pretty stable, pretty conservative 7% rate of return. And so what are the products that you can use to save for education for your children and grandchildren? The first one is called an education savings account. It can be used for higher education or primary education. So you can use it for private school, Islamic schools, so on and so forth. It allows you to put up $2,000 a year per child. It must be used by the time the child is 30, or it can be passed on to a sibling. One of the drawbacks is that if you are a high income wage earner and you make collectively with your spouse more than $220,000, it doesn't allow you to contribute to the ESA. Additionally, you have tax advantages for the ESA. You don't get a tax deduction when you put it in, but it does grow tax-free. And then when you use it for educational purposes, you don't have to pay taxes on it. And when I say educational purposes, it's, it could be a laptop for your student. It could pay for travel if they're doing a study abroad. So education-related expenses. And one of the good things about the ESA is that it's self-directed. So you have a variety of options to invest in. With our Amana Mutual Fund, it's initial investment of $100. There's no commissions, no fees, but it's an initial investment of $100. And it takes approximately 30 minutes to open an account online. So in addition to ESAs, the other products that I don't have a slide for them, it's really popular, are called 529 plans. So 529 plans are state-sponsored educational savings plans that allow you to put up to $16,000 per year per child. They don't have an income limitation, which is great, but they usually have very limited investment options. So usually they would do a target date fund that will combine bonds with equities. And some people don't feel comfortable with bonds because they're going to be loans that are paying back interest. And the last one is called a UGMA. A UGMA is a uniform gift for minors account or uniform transfer to minors account. So this is the taxable account. So you don't have a tax advantage, but since it's a taxable account, you have pretty much no restrictions on how much money you can put in and no restrictions on when you can take it out or what you can use it for. But moving on, talking about retirement. Retirement is so important. I think it's something that we don't talk about enough in our community. Oftentimes I'm in discussions with my spouse about, hey, should we put this money away for our retirement or should we put this money away for our children's education? And I usually make 2 points. So first point is there's a variety of ways to pay for children's education, scholarship. You can go to community college, you can work your way through. There's really very few options to pay for your retirement outside of what you save for it, Social Security, and actually working through your retirement. And we hope to make work optional. Number two, that I often kind of communicate is that by taking care of yourself in retirement, by putting away money now so that I can have a solid retirement, is you're actually doing something to benefit your children. So if you think about it, when I'm going to be 70 or 80, my children are going to be around the age where they're starting a family, they're raising a family. And so if they have to do both of those, and then they also have to take care of me financially because I didn't prepare myself, that's going to put an extra financial strain on them. And so by making sure that you are, financially sound in your retirement, it will allow your children to focus on supporting you in other ways. So when we talk about sources of income in retirement, of course, there's personal saving and investing, there's pension plans, there's Social Security, and there's employment during retirement. So when we think about Social Security, what would people say is the average Social Security check in 2022?
It was somewhere around 3,000, give or take a few hundred. Well, no, that's not average. That was the top. Average is around 16, 17.
Wow. You should go on a Price is Right, Sister Amira. So the average check is 1673. Okay. I'll take it. I'm not giving it back to Uncle Sam, but what, and I'm sure everyone's from different places here. What if 1673 what would that get you in where you live in your city? Would that get you a 3-bedroom place in a nice neighborhood? Probably not. Even if so, if that's all you had, you will be in a very kind of constrained situation. And so we want to encourage folks to have that personal savings and investing. And so I just want to do a hypothetical example. So imagine a young person starting at age of 25 who had the foresight to really think about their future and their retirement. So at 25, if they agreed to say, hey, I'm going to put $250 per paycheck away and save it for retirement. So $250 per paycheck, $500 a month, $6,000 a year. And they put away $6,000 a year from the age of 25. At the age of 65, they will have $1.28 million. In that one account. So they might have a 401k too. They might own their home. They might have other investments. But in that one account, they have $1.28 million. If they wait, at 25, they might say, hey, I just got out of school. I want to live on my own. I want to do some things. I'm not going to invest right now. And they wait till they're 35. So they start the same formula at 35. And at 65, they're only going to have $606,000, less than half. Like, think about that opportunity cost of not investing 10 years earlier. Like, it's almost like $500,000. I tell people, like, that's an expensive decade to lose out on. Additionally, if they wait at 35, they have children, they have to do things, they need to take them to Disney World. You say, I'm not going to invest right now, I'm going to wait till I'm 45. So if you start at 45, you're going to have $261,000 in retirement, less than half if you started 10 years earlier. The other point I like to make about this slide is that for the person who started at 25, they would have contributed to their account $240,000. That's a significant amount of money. $240,000 actually came out of their pocket. But that means that they had over $1 million worth of profit, right? And so it's like, yes, that's a lot of money, but you have to allow this snowball to kind of, do its magic by starting early, committing to it, and investing for the long term. And this is also based off a 7% rate of return. So let's talk about the accounts when you're investing for retirement. The first one is the traditional individual retirement account, traditional IRA. It allows you to put up to $6,000 a year for retirement. And if you're above 50, you can do additional $1,000. And these are 2022 figures. In 2023, you can actually put up towards $6,500 and then another $1,000, so $7,500 if you're over 50. But as of right now, up until April, you can still contribute for 2022. So you get for the traditional IRA, you get a tax deduction when you put the money in. It grows tax-free, and then you pay taxes on it when you distribute it in retirement. And so it's very simple to administer. It usually has very few expenses. And because it's self-directed, you can invest along with your values. You can choose your investments. So you can choose, Sharia compliant mutual funds. Another flavor to the individual retirement account is called a Roth IRA. So the Roth IRA has same contribution limits as the traditional. You don't get a tax deduction when you put it in. So no tax deduction when you put it in. It still grows tax-free. And then when you take it out in retirement, you can enjoy it without paying any taxes on it. It's also very simple to administer, general few expenses, and it's self-directed, so you can have halal choices. Another comment about the Roth is that your contributions that you put into the Roth, you can withdraw those at any time. Remember, these are after-tax contributions, so you can withdraw them and not have to pay taxes or any penalties, your contribution. And then even the profit you can withdraw without penalty and without taxes after 5 years for one of several reasons. If you are have major medical expenses, or you become disabled, God forbid. If you turn 59 and a half and you're at early retirement age, you can withdraw from it. If you're buying a home if you're buying a personal home or first-time home buying. And the last one, if you're paying for college for anyone in your immediate family, you can also, after 5 years, take out the profit and the contribution. So, excuse me, because life often happens. So we're saving for retirement, but something can happen in life where you need that money for something that's very important. In addition to individual retirement accounts, there's also employer accounts. And employer accounts are great because they allow you to save more money for retirement. The contribution limit for 401k is $20,500 in 2022. That number has increased to $22,500 in 2023. The 403b plan, I think it's between 17 and 14,000. So it allows you to put in more than you could with the individual retirement account. Additionally, many employers might match your contribution. So if you put in 2% of your salary, they'll put in 2%. And so generally these plans are paid for by the employer, so they're low in expenses. The one downside is that many times the employer is controlling your investment options. You know, one of the things that we offer at Saturna Capital is we offer we offer 401k plans, simple IRA plans for Muslim business owners, especially if they have Muslim employees who might want to invest in their retirement with the amount of mutual funds. But usually the plans have very limited kind of investment options. And so you have two distinct opportunities with those. The first one is you can ask your employer if they have a self-directed brokerage account. A self-directed brokerage account is where the employer says, hey, you can take this portion of your 401k, maybe it's 50%, maybe it's 80%, and you can invest it any way you would like. And so therefore you can buy Sharia compliant mutual funds. The second opportunity is for you, once you leave a company, you can roll over your 401k or your 403b or your TSP or your thrift savings plan into an individual retirement account with us. You know, this is one of the things that, you know, we help a lot of folks with every year, is that after they leave a company or after they retire, they will take their employer plan and roll it over to an individual retirement account. Especially with millennials. Millennials are, you know, they're known to kind of go to switch jobs more often than, say, boomers. And so if you're switching a job and you have a 401k, you can, every time you leave a job, you can take your 401k and roll it into an individual retirement account. And so that way you can always, you know, be the one who basically has your money in their account and in your own account. So moving on, so we're going to talk about our funds. We have 4 Sharia compliant mutual funds, and we're starting at the bottom with the most conservative, and then we're going to go up to the more risky funds. So the first fund is called a Amana Participation Fund. It was started in 2015. It's a fixed income fund. You know, we were talking about treasuries, we were talking about CDs, and so this is a fund that focuses on fixed income for people who want to preserve where they are. They want to preserve their capital. And so it's not an equity, so it's not going to be as kind of volatile based on how the market is doing. And you're also going to get monthly distributions of income. So like monthly dividends, you'll get a dividend every month. And we're going to see some of the performance for this in a second. Number 2 is the Amana Income Fund. The Amana Income Fund is our oldest fund. It was started in 1986. So in 1986, there was a group of Muslim families who were looking for an alternative to an interest-bearing checking account. And so they thought about investing, pooling their money and investing. And so this started the Amana Income Fund. It looks at large cap US companies who are paying a dividend. So this is the objective of this is income. And yeah, and it's been around since 1986. So that's almost 40 years of a track record in terms of the Amana Income Fund. Moving up the scale in terms of more risk is the Amana Growth Fund. Amana Growth Fund is our largest fund. It's roughly probably around 3 billion of assets under management. And so this fund was started in 1994. And so if you can think about this is 30 years of track record. The objective for this fund is capital appreciation, and it looks at large cap US companies who are trying to grow their stock price. And the last fund that was started in 2009 is called the Amana Developing World Fund. The Developing World Fund is focusing on growth companies, but growth companies in the developing world. So we focus on China, Malaysia, Indonesia, South Korea. And South Korea. And so this is a brief illustration. And so when we think about investing, so just a real concrete look at that. If you invested $10,000 in September 2012 into the Mana Income Fund, and this past September 2022, it would have been worth $24,998. And so when we're talking about funds, we have to give a benchmark, because if I tell you I'm going to give you a 5% rate of return and this level of risk, and then you have to know where's the return for treasuries. Or if I say this mutual fund has a 10% rate of return and the market has a 30% rate of return, there's something left to be desired. And so the S&P total return, or the S&P 500, basically is the largest 500 public companies in the US. If you invested in that in September 2012, $10,000, and this past September, it would have been worth $30,000. And then, if you invested $10,000 in a Amana Growth Fund in September 2012, this past September, it would have been worth $33,000. Additionally, when you look at our performance, this is our 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, and 10 year. The 10 year, the annualized return over the last 10 years, the average over the last 10 years for the Amana Income Fund was 9.6. For the S&P 500, it was 11.7. And for the Amana Growth Fund, it was 12.8. So these are the kind of annualized average returns over the last decade. And for our other funds for the developing world, the average over the last 10 years was less than 1%. If you look at our benchmark for the developing world fund, the MSCI Emerging Market Index, their return over the last 10 years is around 1.05. So as an asset class, emerging market mutual funds haven't really done well this past decade. For the Amana Participation Fund, our goal usually, because it's conservative, is usually 2 to 3%. The 5-year return is right at around 1.3. And then our benchmark for that is 1.8, is the FTSE Sukuk Index. So I know that was a lot to cover. And so I kind of wrapped it up, but we definitely have some times for some question and answers. Did I cover everything, Sister Amira?
Yeah, you did a good job. You said it was a lot to cover. And I know we're all like, okay. So you can unmic yourselves now and ask questions. So as they're beginning to unmic, let me ask this question just on a general. So should we begin to invest if we still have high interest rate credit cards or debts to pay? Is that someplace should we begin to invest if we still have that going on? That was a question we talked about last week.
Yeah, it's a very good question. And, you always have to depend on who you ask, right? So if you're asking an investment professional, they will probably say yes, versus someone who focuses on personal finance, right? And oftentimes you also have to kind of think about what interest rate are you paying for your credit cards versus the rate that you're getting for your investments. So for example, if you're getting an investment that has 15% returns versus and paying 4% interest, then that will be a different solution or answer than if you have, credit card debts where the interest rate is almost 22 or 27%, so on and so forth. So, but the best thing is that we want people to start investing from a very secure position, right? Don't invest the money that you need to feed your family. Don't invest the money that you need to pay your light bill or your rent, because investments incur risk. So if you're like saying, hey, I got this $2,000 to pay my rent in March, I'm going to put it in this fund. There's no guarantee that you're going to get in the next 2-3 weeks that the fund is going to go up or go down, right? And so you want to make sure that you're kind of investing from a position of strength by kind of making sure that you have your needs covered. You have a emergency fund just in case if things happen, because we don't want people to be in a situation where you are investing and then the market has a correction or market is going down and you're in a position where you have to take the money out, right? Because oftentimes when the market will go down, after a certain period of time, it'll come right back up. Like if you think about what they call the COVID dip, once COVID kicked off, the market kind of went down. If people sold right there, you would have lost out. But if you kept the money in, like if you look right here, I can't. This was, around between September 19 and 20, the market went down precipitously over a short term. So if you needed that money then you would have kind of cemented in your losses. So, always, make sure that you're in a solid position, and you can start with a little amount. Like, for example, if, even if you are able to take care of all your bills, you're able to, put a certain amount of money away to debt. If you invest, on our platform, you can start with as little as $25 a month. So you did $25 a month just to make sure that you're kind of committing to it. You're developing a habit of saving and investing. That might be the idea that one will want to take.
Like you did cover so how much do we need to start investing? That was my next question. So you covered that you could start as little as $25.
So you can start with as little as $100, but you can do as much as $25, every month or every quarter. You can set that up like automatic investing schedule.
Okay.
As little as $25. But all of our accounts, a minimum is $100 to open. There's no fees. There's no commission. It's $100 initial investment.
Okay, and so like with the amount of income fund, so how much does it cost every year to manage it? What are the fees for that? So, but you just said there were no fees. The expense ratio, okay, 1.1.
Yeah. Well, there's, and that's a good question. So there's no fees to like have the account. The mutual fund has a fee. So each fund has a different expense ratio. So the expense ratio for the amount of income fund is 0.77. So if you invest $1,000 over the course of a year, the expense ratio will equal $7.70. And because the amount in your account is going to go up and down every day, they're going to take that 0.77% out daily. So they're going to take 0.77 divided by 365. And that's how much they're going to take out per day. And, also worth mentioning is all of our returns are net of the expense ratio. So the return of, 9.5 or 9.6, that's what the expense ratio already accounted for.
So do you think that the mutual fund is the best place for a beginner to start?
Yeah, I do. And I say that because, sometimes people want to buy individual stocks. And I will always ask people, why did they want to buy individual stock? And, maybe they know somebody who works there. Maybe they like their products. And you will ask them, like, have you read their 10K? Do you know what their performance is going to be? Do you know what they're forecasting revenues and income and profit for the next year or the next quarter? And usually most of the time that answer is no, they haven't done that type of due diligence. And so it's like, look, start with investing with professionals. you will get a summary of your account every 6 months and every year. You can read the summary to understand how investors think, what you should be looking out for. You know, for us, especially as Muslims, when you look at our reports for Amana Mutual Fund, you'll see companies that have already passed these screenings in terms of they don't do anything that's not aligned with our faith. And so you can say, okay, well, I know these companies are safe. I'm going to look at these companies, so on and so forth. So I think mutual funds are a good way to get in. After you've been in for a while, you become more sophisticated. And there's other things that you want to look for. If you want to kind of invest in individual stocks that you feel strongly about, then definitely. But make sure that your wealth bucket, where you're investing for the long term, is you really have a lot of trust in what you're doing yourself, or whoever you're trusting with investing with you or for you.
I've got a twofold question. One of them is related to what you just talked about. Why mutual funds as opposed to exchange traded funds? That's the first question. And the second question is, I was looking at your mutual funds offering. I didn't see any like banking or insurance companies there, and also didn't see any energy. And I guess my question there is, which test did majority of them not make to not be a part of your fund?
Very good question. Very good question. And so the first one was about exchange traded funds. So exchange traded funds are similar to mutual funds in the fact that they invest in a wide variety of companies. And so there are a few kind of Islamic ETFs that are offered. So basically they will do the screening. They will do a similar screening to what we do in terms of Sharia compliancy. And then, like say they look at 5,000 companies, they whittle it down to 2,500, and then they will buy all those companies. So you're basically getting the benefit of the large number. You're getting the benefit of looking at the whole kind of market. And also with ETFs, because it's more algorithmic, so to speak, that usually they have a smaller kind of expense ratio. And so it's very fair, often at iftars and parties, I'll get someone who comes up to me and was like, oh, this ETF has a smaller expense ratio than you. And it's like, it's true that like there's definitely funds with, lower expense ratios. So one of the things that we like to think about, even if you look at someone like Vanguard or Fidelity, when you look at their growth fund, they have a growth fund where their expense ratio is 0.8, and Vanguard and Fidelity are huge, right? These are huge companies. And so we really strive to make our costs as low as possible. We like to consider ourselves a discount brokerage. Our expense ratio for the amount of growth fund is 0.64%. The other thing I would say on that is that you want to make sure that you're comparing apples to apples. So at the end of the day, if you're in an ETF or in a mutual fund, the returns are like for like. And so if you're in an ETF as a smaller expense ratio, but it's giving you an 8% return versus having a larger expense ratio, but you're getting a 10% return, that 10% return is going to be greater than the 8%. And so we, whatever folks like to invest in, but we just want to make sure that you're comparing like performance and other things outside of performance, even customer service. How are they in terms of, I know some companies who have an ETF, but you can't give them a call. If you need to do a backdoor conversion or a backdoor Roth or Roth conversion, it's hard to get to speak to someone on the phone. They don't do as well of a job as educating individuals, especially when they're more like robo-advisors. They might have, videos online, they might have, webcasts, but they don't like work with customers on an individual basis. And that's one of the things that we pride ourselves on. Like we have podcasts, we have other means, we have email lists, but then we also work with people. If you have a question about your account, and we don't just work with people who are, high net worth individuals. I have conversations, 1 to 2 hour conversations with someone who's just starting and who wants to invest $100, but this $100 for them is very important. And so that's one of the things that we like to pride ourselves on. And also, when we think about investments, that we have an investment team. It's actually an international team. We have offices in Malaysia. We have a fund in Europe. And so our international team is looking for securities across the country, across the world, right? And they focus on the industry. So if we're focusing on the energy industry, we're going to look at energy industry in the US and Europe and Malaysia and Asia, so on and so forth. And that's very different. You don't have to have as much kind of human capital when you're doing ETFs. Like your investment arm is not going to be as big, but it's definitely an option out there, and we definitely have those for our community. And so, and people are going to look into them as well.
What are the tax differences? And that's always like a confusing thing between mutual funds and ETFs of, how you have to account tax wise on an annual basis for growth in those two different investment vehicles.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm not sure if I have the answer to that. One of the things, so there's two different ways to look at it. Is one way to look at it in terms of, how our investment managers look at taxes, right? And for the taxes on that portfolio is different than if they had an ETF. But the other way to look at it is for your account. So for example, if you have the individual retirement account, when it's tax-free growth, you're not going to have to think about taxes within that year, right? You only have to think about taxes, when you're taking out for a traditional, and you just don't get that tax deduction when it was a Roth. But if that's something that, if you want to send me an email, I can kind of follow up with some of our portfolio managers.
Okay.
The other question is, you said about financial services companies. And so financial services companies, usually banks, one of their primary incomes is interest income. And so that's why we just kind of avoid that, to kind of, be open to the kind of broadest kind of interpretations of what's allowable. So we don't invest in financial companies, financial services companies. Even when insurance companies is a little bit, there's a little bit more room for interpretation, but we kind of avoid those as well, and so we're trying to, and then you said energy. So one of the things that is a part of our ESG mandate is that we avoid fossil fuel companies. So when we think about fossil fuels, just because they're not sustainable, their impact on their environment, we made a decision through our ESG screening to avoid fossil fuel companies. But other energy companies is something that we actively look at. If we think about, there was some about renewable energies. So when renewable energies, a lot of people can focus on solar companies, but there's all types of, companies that work in the supply chain of renewable energies. And so one of the companies that does a lot of work around renewable energy that people might not think is Johnson Controls. So Johnson Controls is one of the companies that we own. I'm not sure if it's in our growth fund or our income fund, but that's one of the companies. And so, yeah, we do look at, a variety of these industries, but banks and insurance companies particularly don't pass the business sector screening, and the fossil fuel companies don't pass the
ESG. Right. So just a quick question, and I'll shut up so some other people.
No, Edward, I appreciate it.
So you guys have an income fund that is preservation of principal, but almost like guaranteed rate of interest return. So you have to have investments that are also throwing off almost some kind of interest. So I'm wondering, like with banks and insurance companies, if there's like an upper threshold, like if, for example, JP Morgan Chase or even Visa, let's take Visa. So if Visa is making, I don't know, they probably make 80% of their income comes from, what they charge retailers and all that stuff. But if it's interest rate charges in there, say for JP Morgan Chase, what's the upper threshold? I mean, is it like 12%, 17% that you can go in and they're making too much on interest and stuff like that? You know, what is that threshold that kicks them out? Because, and I ask this because JP Morgan Chase is one of the stocks that I own.
Mhm.
And they've been very good to me over the years. Jamie Dimon's a really good manager, right? So as an upper threshold of the amount of income that they're making from, you know, interest charges on loans, different things like that, at what point do they kind of get bumped off to the side? That's too much. That's considered REBA, but the 4.5% is not considered REBA. But at what point does it become REBA for you guys?
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. And so the banks and the insurance companies are not passing the business sector screening. So we're not even thinking about, hey, what level or how much interest income do they have, because their primary business is charging people interest on, you know, or giving people interest, so on and so forth. They don't pass the business sector screening. So we're avoiding financial companies. And going to the second part of that question about how do you have I think instead of talking about the income fund, I think it's the participation fund, because that's our fixed income product, right? And so that's a very good question. You know, one of the things I've thought about a lot, you know, I studied Islamic finance in Malaysia. I thought about a lot, like, how do we get a very kind of conservative portfolio for Muslim investors? Because most of the things that are going to give you that conservative are like bond mutual funds, treasury, so on and so forth. But, you know, you get to a point where you want to preserve your capital and you want to get current income from it, like you would from a fixed income. And so what the Muslim kind of Islamic finance world has been working on probably for the last, at least for the last 30 years in earnest, are what's called sukuks. So sukuks are asset-backed certificates that function similar to bonds, but they have, like, you know, very small but very distinct differences. And so if I give you, for example, if you take Qatar Airways needs to update their fleet, right? So this is, you know, that's a considerable capital. So instead of just going to say JP Morgan and taking out, you know, doing a $2 billion bond issuance, is that they will issue sukuks. They'll create a special purpose vehicle that will issue sukuks. So this will issue, you know, $2 billion of sukuks. They'll get the $2 billion, and then that SPV will rent out the jets to Qatar Airways. So Qatar Airways will pay a lease, and that lease payment will go back to the sukuk holders as their fixed income. How that's what's going to be behind their monthly distribution of income. And usually that's why I say monthly distribution of income, because it's not dividends, it's not interest, but it's, you know, so sukuks have a few different contracts. Some of them are based off lease. Some of them are based off of partnerships, so on and so forth. So you can get, if that's something you're interested in, we have a talk on our website about sukuks, giving some background, some overview.
You know, that sounds very similar to industrial development bonds to me.
Mhm. Yeah, a lot of this stuff is very similar, and it's about because, you know, anyone, you know, what you're trying to prevent is having just a contract that's based off money. And so you want to create a contract where you're bringing something in that's creating the value of the asset. And so usually it's going to give you the same benefits, right? Fixed monthly income, very conservative. You have the asset that is backing it up. The difference between a bond and a sukuk is really like, how do you look at the assets backing it? Even bonds will say, hey, we're putting these assets behind it. Sukuks, you actually have to have it. It's mandatory, but it's still trying to give you that same function, that same kind of facility, and trying to avoid a contract that's just based off of a loan and paying back that loan.
Right. So it's almost like it is a participation investment.
Exactly.
It's almost like equity, but it's preferred equity.
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay.
But yeah, we do, in the US, like Sukuks are fairly new. When I was in Malaysia, they were doing a lot of Sukuks. Like Malaysia is like very advanced. Like even in their checking accounts, even their regular checking accounts, they're looking for, fixed income payments. And, even in their Islamic, right? So when you go into a bank in Malaysia, they will have an Islamic window and they will have a conventional window. So everyone can kind of choose.
You guys with Graceline be listening to that because that's the model, right?
Yeah. Malaysia, we have an office in Malaysia. We do some of their investing for their natural pension fund. And it's a very kind of sophisticated model. They've been doing it for a lot longer, and they're really, and even in this industry, there's a conference coming up in October in Houston about Islamic finance in America. And you have people really like digging in and trying to understand is like where are the fault lines between many of these issues. I think one of the issues that really needs some work is around insurance. Like how do we, if the current insurance model is not acceptable, what do we need to do in order to make insurance like more acceptable, so on and so forth? And how do you bring that to the market? Because it's great to have something in concept, but if you can't bring it to the market and make it work for everyday Americans and everyday Muslim Americans, then it's not really going to be kind of fruitful. It's not going to really work.
Alhamdulillah. I was talking, this was a couple of years ago, with one of the portfolio managers there, and we were talking about, as you say, insurance, life insurance. And so my question was, are they halal? And his response was that they would recommend the term life insurance because there wasn't any investments. There was no growth in the account. You bought the term for a particular period of time. At the end, it was over. So what do you think about that term versus whole life?
Yeah, that's always what I was taught, that, many of the problems with insurance is not necessarily the idea of insurance. The idea of insurance, you can look at the life example of Muhammad the Prophet in the Treaty of Medina that he signed with the Jewish tribes of Medina, that was an insurance, a kind of mutual insurance contract. And so the problem with whole life is for the part that's being invested, what are they investing in? If someone came out with a whole life that was based off, only investing in Sharia compliant, like Sharia screened companies, then I think that will kind of open up a different avenue. Also what I've heard oftentimes is that, many people in the Muslim community have a very kind of aversion to investing or to other parts of Islamic finance. So those are parts that do well, like home financing. Home financing does well because people don't feel comfortable with home financing. But Muslim Americans more often than not feel comfortable with insurance. So there's really not a kind of market for Islamic insurance, right? Because when you bring that to the market, you need a certain level of economies of scale to really make that product viable. And so I think that's one of the challenges. But the term life insurance, and I know people who don't agree with term, and I often are trying to really just really making sure they understand what problem they have with it, and trying to say, is the problems you have with it outweigh the cost of you not having it, right? I know, friends of mine who have passed away and their family is in really kind of financial distressful situations because he was a sole breadwinner and he passed away, and now his wife is having to kind of take care of things with in less than an adequate situation.
Adam, you had a question?
Adam, brother Adam, how are you?
I'm doing great, alhamdulillah. Good to hear you, brother. Enjoying it. You know, there's a company that came to the forefront of in life insurance by pushing buy term and investor difference.
Mhm.
You're familiar with that company, right?
I'm
Now it's
familiar
called-
with that idea.
Well, it was made popular by at that time A.L. Williams. Now it's Primerica, right? And they made a big splash in the insurance market. And the problem is there was no discipline in investor difference. So people bought term, but they didn't complete the whole thought. They didn't invest the difference.
Right.
And because they didn't invest the difference, and later on in life, when they start canceling the term, they didn't become self-insured. The idea of that is you become self-insured by the time you're 50 and 60. And they didn't invest the difference to the point that they become self-insured, that they will have their nest egg complete. So that was the problem with that. And so I can see if Muslims buy term and then get some halal compliant products and investments, then that would be, and I'm speaking especially for African Americans, because it tends to be us that need the help later on in life, right? I mean, now the immigrants, they got their own system, you know. They are born and they raise their children with that system. We don't have that, so we can't do what they do because we are their customers, and their family becomes self-insured on the money that we spend with them. You understand? So we had to look at what we can do in terms of creating a education piece that we hope that will become endemic in our actions and things of that nature. But the problem is too many of us are not in that position because of bad financial advice. You know, when I remember when I first moved to Newark out of college, and the immigrants were telling people don't buy houses because they got mortgage. And they tell them to go, you know, so they can't buy a house, they rent. But when they rent, they're buying a house, they're just not buying it for themselves.
Right.
So we have to look at what we need as a group and not worry about what they're doing, because we're not doing what they're doing. We're not spending, I mean, we're spending money with them so they send their children to college. They build their family nest egg. And what do we have? Nothing. I'll lower my hand.
No problem.
Amen.
Amen. You know, I just came back from doing a presentation, and definitely, I think you're right on, brother Adam. But there's so many people across our communities, whether it's Pakistani, Arab, who just really don't have an idea, and there's so much, not necessarily, there's so much that we have the facility to do and to talk about. And that we really need folks to kind of, consult people who care about our community, right? And care about our community means knowing what you need to do when you need to do it. I tell folks who are investing in their 401k and they say, hey, we don't have a self-directed brokerage. I can't really invest along with our values. I don't know what's in here. I say, look, do the best you possibly can until you can do better, right? If there's no halal mortgages, you need a place for your family to stay, and owning in certain contexts is better than renting. Sometimes renting is better, but owning is better than renting. So when you can do better, do better. But if this is where you can do, and you have to do this for not for your survival, but for creating a solid foundation for your family. Because one of the things that, as a quote by Omar, he said that if poverty was a person, I would slay him, right? because poverty often makes everything worse. If you looked at Katrina, the people who had money got out, the people who were in poverty had the worst conditions. When you look at other places around the world, you know, people who are dealing with poverty. So we as a community have to make sure that we're giving our community the tools. You know, alhamdulillah, people become wealthy beyond means. That's alhamdulillah, hopefully they will start and make sure they're giving, but to really get to a point where people are on a solid financial footing. And it's actually helps you with even the practicing of our faith, right? And so, you know, and understanding that you have to do the best you can until you can do better. And sometimes that means just investing in, you know, the options that a 401k provides for you. But then when you can, being able to roll that over into a Sharia compliant mutual fund, a Sharia compliant ETF, or any of the other different investment options or companies that you feel really safe with. So, you know, for all of this stuff, we need people who are advising, who are educating, and who are communicating, who have the best interests of our community in heart. Not just saying, do this, you can't do this, you can't do that, but saying, hey, this is how you can do this. This is a better way to do these kind of financial things that you want to do. And also in especially for our young people, you know, I think young folks often tend to what I've seen from myself, and I'm right almost at 40 years old, a little above 40, is that I know a lot of people who just bought crypto. And I'm not saying anything bad about cryptocurrencies as investments, but if you ask them why they bought crypto, they would tell me, it was like, it's cheap. I was like, but why did you buy it? It was like, it's cheap. Or why? Because everyone's buying it. It's going to keep going up. It's going to go up based on what? Or they're like, oh, this is the NFT. Like, what are you buying? And so it's like, there's fads that happen. And then if a couple people make money on those fads, they can kind of create, they can go viral in our community that are just not safe, kind of safe investments for their future. And so, and they think of like old ways, like insurance, investing for the long term. They were like, I'm not going to do that. It's going to take time. You know, and I'm not going to talk for too long. I was talking to a brother in our community, and we were talking about returns, and I was talking about, the amount of income fund, and he said, 10% returns. He said, well, I'm usually looking for like 25, 30, 35% returns. And I was like, okay. And what he said is he said, because he's always looking for home runs. And when you think about us as a community, right? I just came back from Black Wall Street, from the Museum of Black Wall Street. When you think about your being behind, right? And if you think about, if you're behind, you're always going to be swinging for a home run because you feel like you're behind. So I got to catch up quickly. So I'm always swinging for that home run. But that's not how wealth is really created. Wealth is created almost like diamonds. Wealth is created over time. And it's just, one of the rules of investment is called the rule of 72. So if you take your rate of return, divide it. If you take 72 and divide it by your rate of return, that's how long it's going to take your money to double. So if you think about it, if I invest $10,000 when my child is born at a 10% rate of return, every 7 years his money going to double. So the 10,000 when he's 7 is going to be 20. When he's 14, it's going to be 40. When he's 21, it's going to be 80. When he's 35, it's going to be 160. And this is where wealth is created. Wealth is created over time. Like folks who put their money in the bank 100 years ago and began at 4%, they're still living off that income. And so I know there's this temptation to say, hey, I got to catch up quickly. But understand that, we're all going to be someone's ancestors, right? We are all someone's ancestors. So creating this over time, there's no get rich quick schemes, right? There's no get rich quick, even professional athletes, you'll be surprised by the number of professional athletes who are living hand to mouth, especially after they retire, right? Because they have professional athletes, their income, usually people's income goes up like this. And then it curves off and it drops off. Professional athletes' income goes like this, jump up and then come back down, right? And so, usually when people are making those incomes, they think, I'm gonna make this forever. But you got to have people who know what they're doing, who's giving you advice, who's like kind of thinking about what you need for the long term.
Adam.
Yeah, I wanted to say something. Being an accountant, and one of the things I learned about in school were financial statements. And when you mention wealth is calculated on the balance sheet. Your assets minus your liabilities. Income is measured on the income statement. Income statement shows how much income you made over a period of time. So what I used to say about athletes take their income and turn it into trash. Wealthy people take their income and turn it into cash. In other words, they invest in income producing assets that produces cash. Athletes buy trash by buying jewelry, cars, trinkets, and whenever they buy those things, it's like a dead end. That's the end of that money. You understand?
And the worst part of that is that people tell these guys that these things are assets. Oh, like, oh, yo, your jewelry is an asset. The person who's selling it to you, telling it's an asset. It's like you asking a car dealership, is this a good car to buy? No car salesman is ever going to tell you this is not a good car to buy. It's not. And so even for me, it's like when people ask me, hey, like I want people to invest, like open a Roth IRA. If you open it with any company, that's fine. If you open it with any Sharia compliant mutual fund, that's better. If you open it with us, I would love to help you, but just do it for yourself. Like, and if I can get more Muslims to invest, I know we're going to get our share. We're going to get our share because we do a good job. We have a solid return. We try to answer your phone calls when you call. We have great customer service, try to educate, but make sure that you're doing it for you. Like, we're doing many seminars because it's like, Brother Adam, Brother Edward, Sister Mary, y'all probably know. A lot of people just don't know. And undoubtedly, I've heard people tell me at every single presentation that I never knew this. I never knew these were options. And it's like, yeah, they're options, and they're getting great returns. I also see I'll go out and do a presentation and somebody will say, hey, I've been investing with you all for 30 years. And, usually somebody who's been there that long, I'm just like, how's it doing? And, I already know how it's doing because I've been investing 20 years myself. And, it's usually good, good marks, they enjoyed it. We answer their questions, but we definitely have to bend the curve and make sure that people understand this because, oftentimes we talk about generational wealth, but before generational wealth, we have to create generational knowledge. Right. We have to create that generational knowledge to understand how money works. Right. So that, like if I didn't start investing until I was 40, that I want to make sure my kids understand investing when they're younger. And I want to make sure their kids are understanding because there's other communities that have this kind of generational knowledge where kids are understanding where to put money or their parents are telling them where they should put money and they're not giving them an option. And then once they see the benefits of that, they're like, oh, okay, my money's working for me. Instead of just buying a car that's going to depreciate after I take it off the lot, let me put some money in this, buy a car in cash, let me put money in this. Because, one of the things it's about, and it's about something that's so part and parcel of our faith. One of the things that investment is about delayed gratification. Right? Instead of taking all the gratification now, you delay the gratification so that you can experience later. And of course, investing is a part of that, right? I'm not going to enjoy this money now so I can enjoy it later. But that is our life as Muslims, as people of faith, that we are not gratifying ourselves. We're not hedonistic now because we know that there is a life to come that is better, that God said is better and longer lasting. And so we have to, kind of really inculcate that culture of delayed gratification in our families and our youth, so that we can understand things like investment and even more importantly, things like our faith. But this is Saturday, not Sunday or Friday, so I need to kind of take a step back.
Right. So Hood, since you were talking about children, minors and stuff like that right then, talk a little bit about UGMAs and getting those started. And if you guys offer those, I'm sure, right? For parents.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yes, so UGMA, I talked about it. I didn't pull up the slide. It's called a Uniform Gift for Minors Account, or Uniform Transfer to Minors Account, depending on what state you're in. So two great things. So these can be open. You could put up to $16,000 per year per child, per person. So I could put in 16,000, my wife could put in 16,000, my son's grandparents could put in 16,000, and it becomes the property of the child. But they can use it, they can take it out at any time, or you can take it out at any time, and you can use it for anything for that child. So you can use it to pay their light bill, you can use it to buy them a car, you can use it to send them to Hajj, so on and so forth. So it's a way to kind of invest for a child that gives you a wealth of options, a wealth of flexibility. Number two, and I think this is important, for people who can't qualify for an ESA, who make above $220,000, one of the kind of wealth strategies that people are using now is that you create a UTMA for your child, right? So if I make 240, I don't, but if I make 240, inshallah, when I make 240, I can't open a ESA for them because I'm a high income earner. So I open a UTMA for them. I give them $5,000, $10,000, and it becomes technically it becomes their money. And so they can then fund their ESA because they don't make $240,000. So they're under that income threshold, so they can put the money into an ESA and thereby contributing, getting that tax-free growth, being able to use it and not pay taxes on it. So UTMA is great for the account that you're investing for your child, that that the money can get transferred over to the child. One of the things that parents often think about is creating a joint account for, like, if I created a joint account for myself and my son, Yahya. If Yahya becomes 40 and he's a grown man and, he has a family of his own, and he said, hey, Dad, you're still on this account. I want to have this account jointly with my wife. It will never happen because it was started as a joint account. But if you start it as a UTMA, when my son becomes 21, he can petition to get that money transferred over just in his account. And so those are kind of three kind of benefits of the UTMA. It has very limited rules. You can have as much income as you want. You can use it for whatever you want. You can also, the child can convert that into an ESA, and also it can be fully in the control of the child. One of the downfalls, and I just want people to be aware, is that if a child is filling out financial aid applications, and when they look at the UTMA balance, it's looked at as the child's money, not the parent's money. And so in the algorithm where they're using to ascertain the need of a person, when a child has money, is looked at in a higher way than if adult has money. But what I tell folks is, oftentimes, like, why are we letting the need for financial aid stop us from doing the right thing for our child, right? And stop us from doing the right thing. We should be getting into a place where we're striving to be in a position where we're not going to be the ones who are need-based recipients, right? We're not going to be the people who are receiving zakat. We're going to be the people who are actually paying and giving zakat. And so that, one of the things that we also do for our shareholders is that we can calculate the zakat on your investment accounts, and then we can send you a zakat statement every year. And so once you sign up for it every year, our zakat letters just went out 2 weeks ago, so people are receiving it in their mailbox, and it basically says, you have account, you have this IRA account, you have this Roth IRA account, and this is the balance. Based on this calculation of zakat, this is how much you owe in zakat, and then you can pay that to whoever you want to. You can sell shares, or you could pay it out of your bank account. It's just another service that we kind of offer to our shareholders, just to make sure that they're getting a we're just taking care of all their needs. And to that point, how we calculate zakat on investment accounts is not the standard 2.5%. All right, 2.5% is basing on these assets that are not being put in production. These assets that are just in your bank account. For assets that are actually put in production, the analogy we have is you don't have to give up a part of the asset. You give 10% of the profit that asset creates. So if you have an investment account that's $100,000, and at the end of the year is worth 110, so you had $10,000 of profit. And so the zakat we're going to calculate is 10% of your profit, which is $1,000, and that's what you'll see in your letter. And so, for me, it's definitely helpful. I usually save those letters and kind of make my contributions during the month of Ramadan. So,
are those something you request, or they do them automatically?
You have to request it.
Okay. And it's 12 o'clock. We have a standard practice. We respect everybody's time, but we always like to close out at 12 and then just stick around and talk. So you're welcome to stick around and talk if your schedule permits, but I want to respect your time. I know that you just got in. That's another reason. So if we could just, I want to thank you. I just want to thank you so very much, for coming and enlightening us. And no matter how much we read, we study, we always learn. So you've been a wealth of knowledge this morning, and just thank you so very much. And but if someone wants to give the closing dua, or if anyone has any closing comments for Brother Hood.
Well, I mean, before, and Adam, I would love for you to do the closing dua for us. But Hood, I got to tell you, I've always been, since 1990, when I became a Muslim and started learning about Islam, I've been very skeptical of Muslims in the finance world, because most of the time they were very.
What happened? Yeah, well, we lost you.
I'm sitting here thinking about ways to help you grow your business, because because your outlook and just the approach that you guys have, that is part and parcel of what the Islamic world needs to move us forward. And I know it's in some other parts of the world as well, but you're here with us, so we're going to see if we can help grow what you're doing. Inshallah.
Inshallah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're a valuable asset, and more people need to know about you. And I'm grateful that I knew you enough to call for today, and I'm grateful for the help you gave me too with my own investments. So, Brother Adam, you want to go on? Any other comments for this? This is your last chance now. You want to ask how long should your money last or whatever? This is the last time to talk with him until you call him. What about contact information, Brother Hood?
Yeah, I'll say, can you share it with the group?
Okay.
Yeah.
I can do that.
You have it?
Yeah, I have your information.
Okay.
But I have your cell phone. Is that the number you want me to give out?
Yeah, definitely. Like, you all can have my cell phone. Like, y'all are in the inner circle. So y'all can have the cell phone.
Okay.
Okay, so in saying that, okay, Brother Who, look for Bina Muhammad to be calling you, because I got a lot of questions, because I've had an account with Saturner for the last 5 years. And I think maybe the things that I was doing with it initially might have changed, you know, like when you're doing your will or whatever, things have changed. So I'm thinking I might need to make changes in terms of how I'm putting money and into which accounts. So definitely look for me to call you.
Definitely help with that. Sure.
Thank you.
All righty. If no other comments or questions for Brother Hood, we'll have the closing dua. And as I said, you know, everybody's welcome to stay around. And I have one really good question. Hood, if you get a chance, I want to talk about the reset. So, Brother Adam.
Yes, Hood, in case I don't get a chance if you had to go, I want to thank you for the information, brother. I learned a lot myself. And just to give you, I have an account with Saturna because being signed up with Saturna, got an account, and I had to follow suit. But I'm glad I did. I'm glad I did. So now she has all of her family interested. So you might hit the home run, brother. That home run you were talking about, you might hit the home run. All right, let's close out with the dua. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. Allahu Akbar. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
So for those of you who want to stick around and I got questions or other topics we want to talk, or Brother Who, like I said, if you have time, you know, feel free. This is what
I actually have to run to my son's soccer game. So,
okay.
You know, we have 6 boys amongst us, amongst our family. And so we have probably 10 soccer practices a week.
Sound like a professional league to me, man.
Yeah, exactly. But definitely, I love it.
Yeah, just be thankful that you have the time to do it, brother. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. I'm enjoying it while, you know, I'm sure next time I blink my eyes, they're going to be like, nah, Dad, I'm too busy. So I'm just enjoying it, soaking it all in.
Alhamdulillah.
And yeah, please feel free to not only to reach out to me directly, but feel free to share my number with anyone in our community. I have the privilege and the honor of doing something that I'm very passionate about. And so, I really feel like I want to help people. It's my job, but I really want to help people. I have to do my reports. That's why I know it's a job. But so definitely the more people we can get investing, whoever is with, check out other companies, but just start it and just do the right thing. But I appreciate it. If we ever want to have a conversation on zakat calculations, I'm working on a presentation for zakat calculations and other kind of material that's very that can be very useful for our community as well.
Right. The one I was thinking about is like the one for distribution, paying legacies and debts when you pass. That is just so confusing for me, knowing how much we're supposed to leave to our beneficiaries, our children, and it's tough, and it's something that I'm working on now. So I don't know if that's something that you do when it comes to the monies.
I partner with there's a couple folks. I partner with a guy named Antonio who does wills and trusts, and then there's Ishmael Muhammad and India Ali. I know she does trust as well. She's in Atlanta. And so I think, doing a presentation where we talk about zakat and trust and wills is very important, because this is I was given the khutbah yesterday in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I touched on the rules of inheritance. Oftentimes the Quran can leave a lot for interpretation, or could be very allegorical. But when it talks about our heirs and what they deserve, it's very specific. And so this is for people who really want to kind of understand that and kind of, dig in deep and kind of understand, what they have to do now, because, when you die, that's what's supposed to happen, right? You know, my daughter gets this, my son gets this, my wife gets this, my parents get this. But there's other things you can do while you're alive. Like you can make sure, hey, I'm giving this over to someone. I'm putting this in a living trust. I'm putting this in a trust. And one of the things that Turner Capital does is we have a trust company where we can act as the corporate trustee for a trust. And so, you know, if you don't, you know, I have a family member who has he has two ex-wives that he has children with. He has a current wife and he has kids from all of them. And he put me as the executor of his estate. I was like, I don't want that heat. And like, and one of the ex-wives is like a lawyer. And I said, look, man, I was like, let's get a corporate trustee. He was like, no, I want you to decide. I was like, thanks a lot. But so we definitely have some of those services for our community.
Alhamdulillah. And
Thank you.
I think any other questions or comments? But
I just want to say amen.
Yeah.
Okay, Salam alaikum. Thank you all.
Alaikum assalam.
All right.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Good,
Thank
good.
you.
I'll be reaching out to you, brother. Where it's going now. All right. So
that was great.
yeah, well,
That was really good. That was really,
Yeah.
I was surprised. I was really surprised
But
because
what-
most of the Islamic investment people that I've met, I wouldn't throw a dime at them and let them invest money for me. I mean, I really wouldn't. They're just too close-minded, and they don't. He has a plan. I don't know if that's just him or if that's the entire organization or what, but they have a plan, and it's a well laid out, well explained, easily understood plan. I don't have to agree with it 100%. I wish JP Morgan was in there somewhere, but you know, it's a plan. It made sense. It checked all the boxes, you know, as far as me as an individual and more importantly, me as a Muslim. It just totally made sense. That's somebody that the community can go and sit down and talk to, and you're going to fully understand what your options are and the whys, the positives of it. You know, I mean, nobody comes out and tells you that their expense ratios are higher than somebody else, but he did. But then, you know, he explained the differences in that. I mean, that kind of stuff, you don't get that all the time. I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes, you know, you pay for what you get if you're lucky, you know, so, but anyway, just before everybody leaves, we did, Brother Who did send us a book and you can download, it's on the website, Edward.
It will be on the website after we get this recording. We'll put the recording and the ebook on the website together. But everybody who was invited should have gotten that as a, you can download it. I think I sent that out even to download before today's meeting.
Yeah, he sent us a book called, I think, The 5 Pillars of Prosperity.
Right.
And I got that book. Let me see. I have one of the books, Guide to Understanding Islamic Investing. That's the one they were giving away a few years ago when I first got involved with them. And so I'm anxious to read this and the 5 pillars to investing. You know, so it's probably, you know, different cover and probably the same information because 2 is still 2, no matter what time it is. So,
Right.
but there was recently I came across this is just any other comments about what Who had to say, you know, because I'm going to change the subject in a sense. And I meant to ask, well, that's all right.
Well, here's one thing I do know. I've been invested with Saturna Capital for the last 5 years, and I've seen it grow. So I know it works. And I just feel comfortable with it. And like he says, and each time I call, I might talk to a different person, but they're always very kind, very considerate. They make sure I understand everything it is. that that whatever my question is, they get my question answered, and they just go above and beyond. So I just feel very comfortable with it. I check into it on occasion. They send you letters all the time. I'm getting an email saying my dividends have, I've chosen for them to be reinvested, and it tells me about every time I get dividends. And it's amazing. I mean, I was with, who was that, Primerica before, but I didn't really get that kind of help. And I didn't even know that a help existed until I really kind of got with some Amanda, because it was my daughter who just says, well, I want to invest in some things, but I want to invest in what I want to invest in. And I want to make sure that I'm not investing in something that's not good. And it was my daughter saying that to me that had me search for an investment company that was interested in doing that, making sure that what monies you did invest were halal. So alhamdulillah, that helps.
So which fund did you get that paid dividends?
Okay, so I have the participation, I'm in the participation, growth, and income, and I believe they all pay dividends. And I get a report, reports on them, everything that all of them, I just have them where they reinvest. So I have some of each. And I've just been investing over the years. But when I've noticed, I've seen I think it's the growth. It grows. It might be, it's a little bit, it's expensive, but it seems to stay level the best, the growth. The growth fund.
I guess the correct term when most capital gains is what they mainly get. And those are quite a little bit different from dividends, but those are capital gains. And that's
Yeah, that was a question I was asking him about, the difference between the mutual fund and the ETF. Because the mutual fund will give you taxable income, even though you're not taking the distribution of income.
Well, actually you are. When they reinvest it,
You're taking it, but you're not getting it in your hand, basically.
Well, think of it this way. Their hands is your hands.
I know, Adam.
When you tell them to reinvest it, it's almost like they gave it to you one day in the morning, in the evening they took it back and bought some more with it.
Right. But the same thing with ETFs, though, right?
Yeah, you got to benefit from it, though you didn't see it.
Exactly. That's what I meant. With mutual funds, you don't see it necessarily, but it's the same mechanism. But your potential tax situation is different depending on the tax rate that you pay.
Yeah.
Because with the ETFs, you don't worry about any taxes at all until you take the money out and you get long-term treatment on ETF.
Yeah.
Say they had ETFs. I know you asked him the difference, and did I hear him correctly when he said a Saturna had an ETF? I
don't think they do. I think it would be very easy for them to. Usually ETFs, like I was looking at at some of their portfolio items, and I was really happy to see Apple at the very top, because that's my biggest holding as well as Apple, is usually ETFs, as he was explaining, and he did a very thorough job of explaining it, they have so many more stocks that are involved in an ETF. You may have, I know companies like Vanguard, which he mentioned, there's an ETF of theirs that has like almost 2,000 companies as a part of it. That's a lot of stuff, as opposed to a mutual fund that might have 20 to 50 offerings, as a part of the mutual fund. So, and he's also corrected with your ETFs, because it's really, really low expense ratios. You don't talk to people when you get on the phone with an ETF, because their expense ratios a lot of times are based on customer service, how available they are to you. So he's correct in everything that he said. He was dead on. I wish they had ETFs, but I'm probably going to invest in one of their mutual funds just because I like what they're doing.
All righty.
Well, you had a question. You had something on your mind, Amira. What was it?
Yes, I sent out this email about the reset. And did you all read it?
Now, when you say reset, what do you mean?
The article was about the monetary, the America coming from the switch from currency to the switch in currency, and the person who was being interviewed, she was recommending the purchase of gold because the currency was getting ready to be I want to use the word devalue, but I'm wrong in saying that. But and I meant to print the article out so I could really explain it to you all better. So
No,
I
read it. I
I
read it.
know you read it, but I can't explain it. And so I needed to talk about it. And of actually what this meant. You know, I heard her talk and it made me go start looking at purchasing gold, you know, because you're supposed to diversify your portfolio anyway. I said, well, let me look at gold, but I don't know anything about buying gold. So I spent the last 2-3 days just reading about gold. So, but what did you think, Edward, since you understood it?
Well, the first thing I looked at is who she is, because I'd never heard of her. And the first thing that I found out is she sells gold. That's all she sells. She's a gold salesperson in Arizona. So yeah, I would expect her to pump gold. The other thing I would say is this. People have to get an understanding of the world financial system and the way it works through the central banks. And when you start talking about valuations of currency, they change every minute. So which change is she talking about? They change by the minute. There's trillions of dollars that move from market to market on a minute by minute basis. And the currency changes all the time. And at the point in time in the very near future, when we switch to a digital currency, you won't notice. You got $25,000 in the bank. You wake up the next morning, we're on a digital currency, you got $25,000 in the bank. It won't matter at all. Price of bread, when you went to bed, will be the same as when you wake up. You won't notice. What you will notice is the way that you transact business digitally versus the way that we do it for the most part now. Even though a lot of the stuff we do right now is digital, we just don't call it that. You have a chip in your debit card and your credit card that runs on a digital network. It's there to minimize the cost of transferring your money to an end user, going through the hands of 10 or 11 different people in between who are all taking a little piece. So we in the United States, I won't say we'll be the last ones to change. We'll be near the bottom of the advanced countries in the world to change to a digital currency for one reason. We are the world's bank. This is where everybody sends their money. So for us to change, we kind of have to have a grasp on what all of them are doing so that, you know, we don't mess up everything for everybody. So that's why our Treasury Department is taking as long as they are to switch us to a digital currency. China will be probably the first to switch to a totally digital currency, but it won't change any, you won't know any difference at all.
But like in some countries, you know, when they had that switch in currency, they could have X number of dollars in paper money, and then like at a certain date, it was no longer good.
That had nothing to do with the currency valuation of. That had to do with inflation in their country. So anytime inflation goes really, really high within your country, within your economy, your money buys less. So your $25,000 could be, I'll give you an example. In 1985, I went to Brazil for the company I was working with to buy equipment. And my expense account for the week was $5,000 US. That was how much money I had to spend. Well, Brazil was going through chaos. So the question was, do I convert my American money into their currency, or do I hold my American money and hope somebody will take it? So I gambled with about $2,000 exchanging it for Brazilian currency. And I woke up the next day and that $10,000 US had tripled because the US currency, Brazil had devalued their currency. US currency was stable. So if you were holding Brazilian money, you lost money. If you had American money that was being converted, you had more money. Right? That didn't affect the United States. That just affected Brazil because of their bad economic policies at that time. So that's why when people start screaming about the national debt and things like that, and even more so is defaulting on raising our debt ceiling and things like that, so that the United States can't pay its bills, then you can have a devaluation of your currency because your credit's bad. You didn't pay your bill on time. So when a country like Greece or Cyprus or all these countries can't pay their debts, they lose trust in people. So they have bad credit. So yeah, their currency goes to nothing. You can have a pile of gold or pile of money, not gold, because gold holds its value pretty good. You could have a pile of money, wheelbarrow full of money. That's what my grandfather used to say. Had a wheelbarrow full of money, couldn't buy a loaf of bread. They were talking about Germany post World War II. If you were German over there, you had a wheelbarrow full of money, you couldn't buy a loaf of bread because the German currency was worthless. Nobody would take it.
Also, the European switch into the euro.
Right.
Before that, you have a lot of European countries, but some of them don't have much of a population.
Right.
Don't have much of a market. So by them going to the euro, now you have, it's like spending power, buying power,
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they were, who was at the last one? I think it was the Germans didn't want to come over at first.
Right, because their economy was strong. They thought
They
Europe
had a
was
strong
weakening their economy. Right.
So they didn't want to budge. But that was the whole thing on the euro. One of the things I noticed on the euro that they did that to strengthen the economies of a lot of the weaker countries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you'll notice with China, as China moves to a digital currency, they don't allow crypto at all. Banned it 100%. What's that?
Aren't they mining in crypto in China? There's some element of it. They're mining, creating.
In Western China, they were at one point in time, they were allowing, I think Russian, Iranian, may have been one or two other countries, for them to actually have space out there in the area where there was a lot of coal to produce crypto out there on their grid. I don't know if they're still even allowing that, because they totally banned crypto in China, 100%.
Wow.
Yeah. But they're moving to a digital currency. So that makes you think, what is crypto? If it's really not a currency, what is it? Because people don't allow it.
Yeah, Because they're saying crypto is a digital currency, correct?
But it's not crypto has never been a currency. Yeah, crypto's a bag of potatoes. That's how you have to consider crypto. It's a bag of potatoes. And if you can sell it to somebody, fine. At a certain price, and you guys fix the price between you. It's not a currency. Crypto is never a currency.
But there
It's a commodity.
It's a commodity?
It's a commodity.
Because there are certain countries that switch their
Guatemala for one.
Yeah, and a couple others, like you say, third world countries, but they switched to cryptocurrency.
Right, and they can't even get acceptance within their own borders. Because it doesn't transfer to your neighbors. Like you can't, if you're Guatemalan and you want to go and spend that money in Mexico, you can't spend it. I mean, what, 1% of Mexican retail stores, outlets, car dealerships, whatever, will accept it. So where are you going to spend it? I'll trade you all the eggs my chickens produce for you to come put a roof on my house. Or like my doctor back in my small town I grew up in, he'd take a hog for payment, or a cow, or a side of beef, right? That's a commodity. He can't go put that as a down payment necessarily on a car, though back where I grew up, you might have been able to, I don't know. But that's a commodity. That's not a liquid asset that you can use, get off a plane in Lagos, Nigeria, and go spend that. You can't do it.
Yeah. Can't carry it on a plane for one thing.
No, right. So currency, whatever it is, currency, a really positive, usable currency has to be something that everybody will readily accept. And then you have currency. If I can go ahead, Adam.
What's that term they use with our money? Backed by the faith in something of something.
Right. Yeah. Full faith of and whatever of the United States government, United States of America.
Yeah.
People of the United States of America, because we're the ones behind our currency.
Right.
Because our currency is a promise.
It is.
It's a promise to pay. In other words, that will be honored. You walk into, basically any financial institution associated with the United States of America, and if you have that piece of paper, you can change it into whatever you want it to, that the country that you're in, because we as a people 100% support our currency. And the way that we do that, and the way a lot of countries do it, obviously, is the country itself to protect that. The oath is that we submit ourselves to revenue collection from our government. I get taxed, businesses get taxed. We collect taxes in many, many different ways. We get revenue. Government even sells land holdings, for purposes of that, to make sure that when somebody comes in with a demand on the United States, that we can pay it. And not a lot of countries don't have the system in place to 100% be able to make that claim and have it accepted everywhere in the world. There's nowhere in the world that anybody outside of a few countries in Africa is going to accept Somali currency.
And think of it, Sister Mary, you're in business.
Mhm.
I had a client that asked me after I did the taxes, will you accept my check? And I said, sure, as long as it's good. Is it good? And then she said, I would like to think it's good. I said, what's keeping you from thinking it's good? After that, I said, no, you got to pay me different. You use your debit card or credit card.
So you lost faith in her check, huh?
Oh, I lost big faith with her.
She didn't have faith in her check.
I like to think that it's good.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
It must be good. I still got checks. Still got checks in the book.
Yeah. So what I would say to that lady's article is that, my deep check would be on, how stable the banks are in the United States and how stable our banking system, our collection of payments to the IRS and to the Treasury Department, things of that nature. I would look and see where other countries are still looking to have their money held. And as long as they are putting their reserve currency in our banks, and especially with our Federal Reserve System, you have no worries in this system. Because that's the biggest stamp of approval you can get. It's like going by a restaurant and their parking lot is always full.
Mm-hmm.
Something good going on up in there. Right? So as long as everybody's using us as their parking place for their reserve money, they think we're safe.
I was looking at some chart, and because I don't know a lot about what I'm talking about, that's why I'm asking so many questions. Since I was looking in terms of doing the gold research, that in comparison to gold, the American dollar was still holding strong. The value of it was just 1.4 the value of gold.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with our dollar. In fact, people think our dollar is too strong. So there are people in the United States who argue that our dollar is too strong.
And who were they?
Well, people that like
to investment someplace else.
Well, no, people that want to sell our products in other countries. The stronger our dollar is, the harder it is for us to export products.
Oh, okay.
It's easier for us to go buy other people's stuff when we have a strong dollar, because we're getting a discount on their goods because our currency is stronger than their currency. But you want to be kind of balanced. Like we want to be balanced with the euro, and we want to be balanced with the Japanese currency and the Chinese currency and things of that nature. You want to be more balanced, but that's, you're depending on them to make good decisions as you make good decisions. And that doesn't always happen. I mean, what happened in China with their real estate market, with them closing down for COVID, almost 100%, that damaged them financially. So they're not up to where they were 3 years ago. I mean, they're down. They've come down a notch from where they were pre-COVID. So, so that's why you see even the shift of manufacturing out of China into Central America. That's why we started arresting drug dealers in Mexico, and why we're building this multi-billion-dollar railroad to run all the way from Central America all the way to Canada. Is because a lot of the stuff that was going on in China is going to be going on in Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, and countries like that in the next 10 years. Because we can't have supply chain disruption. So this is the United States, again, influencing this region to protect the interest of the United States. And if the United States does that in a proper way, people are going to put more money in the United States. And our currency is going to be stronger, and our banks are going to be more stable. So no, I wouldn't worry too much.
Yeah, and I pulled up the article. So let me ask you about this. She talked about the banks, the bailout of the banks in 2008, and that they outlawed any further financial bailouts for banks. So now it would be people, the private consumer who would be the who would be the sacrifice, so to speak.
Right. Yep. So our banking system basically tells you, and this probably would cover most of us. There's some of us that have great wealth. But like within our community, you're covered in your bank account up to $250,000 per account.
Yeah, the FDIC.
Right. When you get over that, start worrying. If you're under that, don't be too concerned about
Yeah.
bank bailouts. The other thing I'll tell you is this, is that when that bill went into effect, is you have to go back and you have to ask yourself, what was the fallout from Obama signing that legislation? And, you know, all the caveats that went with it, and who acted on that? Well, one of the things I can tell you is prior to or in conjunction with that happening, Berkshire Hathaway, well, I don't even know if it was Berkshire Hathaway as much as it was Warren Buffett, bought 10% of Bank of America.
I remember that.
As a
It was
result,
down to $2 a share.
right. So they used that money to buy Merrill Lynch. What that tells you is somebody who is as frugal as that guy, who still lives in the same house he bought in 58,
Yeah.
he wasn't throwing good money after bad. So there are obviously some things that are written into that particular bill that are not going to cause such pain that there would be panic within the United States banking system. Or he wouldn't still hold 10% of Bank of America, almost $37 billion, you know, worth of his money tied up in Bank of America, which I don't even think is a great bank.
You know,
But
that was the mafia's bank.
That's what they keep saying. But the
Well, it
mafia didn't start in San Francisco.
It did start in San Francisco in the Italian community because they couldn't get banking. So they started their own and it grew. And now it's
okay,
Bank of America.
Okay, I can understand the Italian side of it. I didn't know it was the mafia.
Well. You ever know, the Italians, the mafia didn't have something to do with, Italian money. If it was money in it, I can guarantee you that they got their fingers in it, and it grew and all of that.
Okay.
It started.
Yeah.
Because the Italians could not get, the banks would not loan to them, just like they don't loan to us.
Right. Yeah.
So that's all right. We'll start our own bank.
I was gonna say we can't criticize them for starting the bank because we can already start one.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm not criticizing for starting a bank. I'm telling you their origins.
That's all right. That's all right.
That's perfect. In fact, we follow in their
shows it works.
footsteps. It does. It works. And I love that Hood brought up the Malaysian banks with the multiple windows.
Yeah.
You want to do Western banking? Door number 1. You want to do Islamic banking? Door number 2. Right? You just have to have the right banking platform to be able to handle all those different kind of transactions, because your accounting is going to be uniform. If you're in the United States, your accounting and your audits, all that's going to show up on the same book of numbers, right? So you got to have a good platform that helps you to be able to manage all that, especially if you get to, any size as an institution.
It gives you, I'm going to use the word hope because it comes to me faster than anything else, is that because we are here, all we hear is no, what you can't do, what you can't do, what you can't do. And then you travel across, a few hours and you see, not only can we do this, we do it better, and we're at the top of our game with it.
Right.
So a lot, had its rules and regulations, but that didn't mean that we couldn't excel.
Yeah.
It's that mindset that comes to tell us, oh no, you can't do crap. You can't do nothing. You can't do nothing but starve and, and buy your food from us. And, but anyway, let me go back to this. Now she's saying that according to the FDIC, what the woman is saying, that there is no money. The FDIC Deposit Insurance Fund, she said there's no money in it.
Where'd she get that from?
That's her statement.
Okay, then she doesn't even know how to go and read, anything about FDIC. What are the banks paying their money in the FDIC? Where's the money go? Because the banks fund FDIC, just like when we get our charter, the fees that we pay every year to NCUA fund NCUA. So
Well,
NCUA puts out an annual report every year
Mhm.
that shows what their finances are, their capability of handling bank failures, credit union failures, FDIC puts out the same statement every year. All you got to do is go pull it up. You'll see how many on their assets, liabilities, income statements, all of that. All you got to do is go look. All that information is there. That's why I say don't let people scare you. When the information is at your fingertips, when you can type FDIC and hit enter, and it pulls it up, and all you got to do then is click on annual report, they can't scare you because the information's there. You can see it for yourself. And not everybody's lying.
Well, what she meant was there's no money in it for her.
I guess.
She's trying to sell Amir some gold. Leave her alone.
Hey, look, and I got nothing against buying gold. There's nothing wrong with buying gold. Gold holds its value pretty good. It really does. Platinum also holds its value extremely well. But if you're going down that route of something that is somewhat illiquid, invest in art, which even does a better job of return on investment than gold or platinum or silver. There's lots of alternative investments that are somewhat illiquid that you can invest your money in, as opposed to, having it in a bank, getting 3%, or the treasury getting 7% or whatever. But don't base it on a ghost story. And Hood said that. Don't base it on a ghost story. Because the information is there to make good decisions. It is there. It's available.
Well, thank you so very much for just chewing that over with me.
Yeah. I mean, you got the man. Ask Hood what he thinks.
Who?
Well, if you worried about the banking system, ask him.
Him being whom?
Hood Williams.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And I said that at the end. I said, no, that's a long conversation. You got to go. So you can bring that up with him in a private conversation.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, there's all kind of people out there trying to scare you or encourage you into certain things. He even talked a little bit about the whole crypto thing.
Yeah.
Right. And NFTs. Somebody almost talked me into buying one of them. What do they call them? Bored ape things. When everybody was buying. No, I can't see it. I don't know where this is going. I don't understand it. So I left it alone. My friend bought 2. He don't talk about it anymore. He does not talk about it at all.
Let's not talk about that.
But
I also wanted to get in the point about self-directed accounts, because over the last few years, I've tried, I think about 3 times I invested quite a bit of money. For me, it was a lot of money. And I probably have lost somewhere between $30,000, $35,000 with this self-directed. So
your money's still there though? You haven't taken it out, right? Like you hadn't closed the account out?
Well, the first time, that was kind of like what this thing you just said, the brothers bought, and he didn't know what it was. I let a Muslim brother, he gave me this line of goods about something, and I invested a lot of money in it, and it didn't turn out to be nothing. I mean, just nothing. And when it was all over, I asked my accountant, I said, so what about all of this? He said, what about what? So I can't even explain how he sold me that bill of goods. And then the second time around, what did I get into? It was some stocks that didn't do anything. I mean, just went to nothing. And the third time I invested, I still have about half of that investment. I got $8,000 left. And but it haven't made any money, and the other stocks in it, they just went down to like, who are they, and where are they? It's just a negative on my statement.
And you haven't had anything you could take those as losses against gains.
Yeah, that's what I want to do this year. When I do my taxes, I'm going to ask, can I claim these as losses? And before
You got to sell them.
Huh?
You got to sell them.
I got to sell them. So, and I was going to do that the other day. I said, but let me ask a question. Let me just be still for a minute. I guess I was being still for this moment. So I got to sell them. And if I sell them now, though, then it doesn't count against last year, does it?
Well, you should have sold them in December.
Yeah. So, but I need to sell them.
Yeah.
Because it's just negative. The only thing left was one stock that I had that was some good, that was Ford. And it managed to hold its value and make a few dollars, but it didn't make up for the other money, other stocks I bought. They weren't, I lost money on them, and I let them sit for, over a year. I said, well, just let it sit. Maybe it'll come back, but it just withered on into the ground.
No, I'm still there. That's your inshallah fund. No, but the best time to sell them is that if you have some capital gains to offset them against.
Right. Yep.
Because if you sell them, and I'm not sure how much they are, but let's say you're limited to how much capital loss you can deduct is $3,000 per year. Let's say you have a $10,000 loss, you put on your taxes, you can deduct $3,000 of them, but then the other $7,000 goes, it's carryovers to next year, to future years. But if you don't have any gains to offset them against, you're selling. You can recoup the loss over 3 years.
Adam, I'm gonna switch to you as my accountant. I had a brother who literally is brilliant, but I'm not doing well in terms of being smart with my money. Although, I'm frugal with my money to a certain degree now, and I'm going in the right direction. But I need more information about it. When it got into the investing part is where I began to really flop. And so this is good for me. This class, I'm learning myself. I'm going back and trying to just redo things and undo things. And then one thing too, and I asked Edward about this. Edward, remember the pizza stock that we bought? Remember I told you I never got anything, no statements. You told me what to do and I never did it. So tell me what to do again.
Okay, so you invested in the Regulation A round, right? Do you remember how much? I mean, you don't have to tell me the exact number, but was it 500 to 1,000, something?
Yeah, it was I invested $1,000.
Okay. And did they send you an acknowledgement, number one, that they received your funds?
I never got anything from them.
Okay. So yeah, I'll get you the address for investor relations with them and the phone number, because that's who you need to talk to. And you do have, from your bank statement, when you made that payment, you probably have the record of the payment going in.
I'm gonna have to go back and find it, but I do keep them.
Okay, right.
And what year was
everything is timestamped, or should be. So that should be pretty easy to correct, to get you an updated statement and all that type of stuff, and all the statements that you missed, because they have to send that out for your tax purposes as well.
Yeah, I never received not a word of thank you very much. We got your money, dog kiss the foot, nothing.
Okay. Yeah, I'll get that information to you.
Okay.
Sister Mira, you're the perfect investor.
Yeah.
You send money, it won't ask about it. I'm gonna send you a deal.
That's a fault of mine. It's not really following up on money, and yeah, and so it's like what else did I do that I was like, I won't even tell it because I'm ashamed. But
I don't mean it. Don't worry about it. I didn't mean to tease you. My bad.
Huh?
I'm gonna talk about you. Go ahead.
No, I'm gonna. Can you be my accountant? We're in different states. Is that an issue?
I'm doing a return right now. The guys in Africa.
Okay. I'm gonna get my stuff together and I'm gonna switch accountants. The brother I had, like I said, he's brilliant, but I'm not, I'm not communicating with him well.
Yeah, that's a big thing with any kind of financial professional you work with. If you don't feel comfortable, I mean, basically being able to have a fireside chat with that person all the time, anytime, you probably shouldn't be working. It's got to be a comfortable relationship because, I mean, really, probably outside of your sex life, your finance life is about the most private thing that you have. Right?
Yeah, because there are a lot of couples that won't talk about their finance life.
Exactly. That's
They'll get in bed with each other, but they're not going to talk about their money.
That's right. Yeah. So it's got to be somebody you're comfortable with.
Yeah. So I can, I was just like, I don't mind being dumb in front of Adam. So I know he has my best interest at heart.
Oh yeah, yeah. I didn't know he and Hood knew each other as well. I mean, I didn't know that. So that's cool.
Adam been around a long time.
Yeah.
And who is, like you said, he isn't that old.
No, he said early 40s, I think.
Yes. And when I first met him, I mean, he had just come into the community. And so we were at that time trying to work on getting financial literacy into the Islamic schools. And so Lonnie Sabur, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Everybody knows Lonnie. So with Lonnie and myself and some other people, but it just didn't work out. And so, but I kept in touch with Hood. And then he lived here for a long time. His wife is the daughter of one of my dearest friends, so she passed. And but his wife that's a beautiful sister. I mean, she just got a heart of gold. And
so how long have they been in the Dallas area?
Not long. He said he's been with Amana for 2 years. So I figured that's just about the time they've been gone from Atlanta.
Okay. Wow.
So
I'm surprised I haven't run into him before then.
Yeah, so but now you all will see each other at the grocery store.
Probably so. Yeah, we probably
know
be
each
like
other.
Fighting for the same parking spot in front of Kroger or something.
Once we meet somebody, then we begin to see them all the time. I probably cross paths at a masjid or
for sure.
Or somewhere. I'm sure you must have crossed paths.
Because if he's in Richardson, he probably goes to the Richardson Central Masjid.
Okay.
More than likely, unless he's driving to downtown Dallas or driving to DeSoto or something like that. If he's smart, he's just probably going a few blocks to that one and back to work if he's working in Richardson. So, and that's one of the three that I frequent from time to time. So I've probably seen him there and just thought that was another African.
Yep, just didn't know him. There's another brother.
Right.
Yeah, just another brother. So, because you never know who comes and goes. Like I knew earlier during having the nation, Muhammad Ali would come to Juma on Fridays,
Mm-hmm.
And he used to go because he came to the school one time, and we used to have the annual Muhammad Ali road race.
Right, I remember that. I had that when I was living there.
Yes, and so he would come and support, and we got my son and him. He gave my son the autograph, and it would, people just show up, and you didn't know who they were, But Muhammad Ali, you knew who he was, but people came in there and sat, but they would be, they'd be rich and famous in some areas, But everybody come and sit at Juma. Everybody, we all the same, just like Hajj, we all the same.
Right.
It's when you go out there and they get in that, Porsche or something, go out.
Who was that? Who was that?
Yeah, I've seen a couple cars. I was like, let me stand around and
Yeah,
see who's
exactly.
driving that. Man, Freeman made a statement. He said, shoot, he said, you know, our a platter does not equal our parking lot.
There's a reason for that. That parking
it
lot.
does.
Some people can still got payments.
Oh, most of them got payments. Yeah, he said, no, it doesn't reflect our parking lot. That's what he said. It doesn't reflect.
Okay.
So, but already, so I'm back to coughers. I guess I need to shut up.
Well, your energy level was definitely up today. I don't know if that was because Brother Williams was with us or because you're feeling better, but your
think
energy level was higher.
Yeah, I felt better today. All the last couple of days, I had relapsed for a couple of days. I had gotten into bed with chills and fever and everything else. And yesterday, I didn't go to gym. My body ached. But I got up this morning. I said, let me do the laundry. Let me do this. Let me do that. I was like, wow, girl. So I was surprised at me. But it comes and goes, you know.
Mhm.
You know, and this is different. This is different. I never had anything stick with me this long.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a learning lesson for anybody that's had it. I just give my salats that I hadn't had it yet, because it does not seem to be a pleasant thing.
No. Mine wasn't as bad as like those when it first came out and people were dying and suffering. And so the really bad part of it for me was just the first few days until she gave me some drugs,
Right.
And then after that, I just had a lot of just, residual issues, the cough, I ain't gonna go into all of that, but today I was shocked. I was like, let me go do the laundry. I'm up the floor before I came on this call.
Wow.
I was like the military. I'll do before 9 what people do all day. I've been up for quite a while now. It was good to have some energy.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. So, all right. Well, this was good. We got 2 more. You're gonna be fired up for next Saturday for insurance?
Yes, but I'm going to I'm definitely going to leave as much time on the table as I can for Aaron.
Okay.
So what I decided to do was just kind of approach the medical issues, because we're both have some of the insurance license, life and health. So but my specialty is health and his is life. So I thought that they give people.
That would be good. Yeah.
Yes.
Health insurance is just as complicated as life insurance.
Yes. Oh, tell me.
Yeah, it is super complicated.
I'm always in trainings. I was at one Thursday, and but I'm always in trainings and I'm always learning new things. But I said the point that I want to make is that your health is really your money is about your health. Number one, number 2 cause of bankruptcy is medical. So it should be good.
Yes.
Should be good. I'm looking forward to it. And hopefully I'll be, live and kicking back next week as well.
All right. Well, go with that energy you have. Go enjoy the rest of your day. Get some for that throat, little tea or something.
Yep.
I'm sure you'll enjoy the rest of it.
All right.
All right then, sister.
Mr. Adam and Edward, I'll talk with you all later.
All right, my sister. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.